Welcome to today's live webinar titled, From Ideas to Implementation, the Process of Creating a Phenomenal E-Commerce Website. Today's program is sponsored and presented to you by .com Weavers. At this time, I would like to turn the call over to your presenter, Amit Bahaya. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amit Bahaya. Welcome to the webinar. And in this webinar, we'll be mostly talking about the steps and the critical elements which you need to really create a phenomenal e-commerce site from soup to nuts. I mean, a little bit about me and our company, .com Weavers. We are a New Jersey-based web solutions company, in business for more than 7 years. And we specialize mostly in e-commerce and custom web applications. Having completed over 300 successful projects, we have a very good understanding of the industry in terms of what our clients need and the custom solutions which they need to really, propel forward. As a business and as an individual, I've always believed in partnerships rather than just projects, and that's the philosophy we implement in our company here. So for us, it's really important that any client, anyone whom we work with, really strives and excels well in the online space. So that's enough about us. Now let's try to get into the details on what it really takes to really come up with that kick-ass website, which is gonna give you which will keep your cash registers ringing. And as we go through that, I mean some of the things which you should know is what do you really expect from this webinar? What are you going to get out of after spending 45 minutes with us here? Is really our goal is to give you an overview of what to really expect as you're trying to build this this site. I mean, not from identifying your pain points to figuring out the next steps, allocating budget, to knowing the best practices, and obviously the different technologies which is out there, and how do you really evaluate and know what's going to work for you and your customers. So as we go through this, I mean, one of the key things first is really knowing what do you want this site to achieve. I mean, a lot of people are starting from scratch. Are you a startup? Are you an established business who's looking to re-platform, or are you were on marketplaces and now you want to have your own site, or you are getting into the B2B space? Everyone has different requirements. But at the end of the day, everything starts with really identifying what is the core issue, what is the core problem you really have. Is it just your look and feel? Is it the checkout? Is it the shopping cart itself? Is it the content? Is it the SEO? I mean, as you can see from here, there are a lot of moving parts to this. So a really good, this is where you really have to spend a lot of time to understand what are you trying to achieve with this initiative. I mean, what are you going to get in the end? And that's the key, really, to get the desired result. And here what we have tried to lay down is give you a good roadmap of how you should move ahead, how you should plan this journey. I mean, from identifying your goals to making sure you have a well-defined vision from a technology as well as a budget as well as a resource perspective, to make sure that you have the necessary support, the necessary tools to achieve that, and the strategy, of course, is needed, or any third-party tools, the whole roadmap to make sure that you come out successful out of this journey. I mean, this journey technically never ends because, you're never done with your site, but at least it gives you a good starting point. You want to make sure you put your best foot forward as you move ahead because, this is just the beginning. So as we talk about this, the first thing is about goals. I mean, what do we really mean by goals? I know it's a big word. Everyone talks about goals. Yes, we all need to have goals. And as you plan to this project, the key really is, as I said earlier, why are you really going, what are you really looking for from this site? What do you want to achieve? And in order to do that, you first have to look deeper. You have to analyze your current business. You have to know your competition, of course. I mean, we all have to know our competition, and that's how really, we know what's out there in the market and what we need to do to excel. In order to do that, as you see, we have mentioned and given you some, nice-looking logos out there, which are nothing but third-party tools which you should utilize to really make your life easier. I mean, there are tools like SEMrush and Moz, which can really give you a very detailed insight on your competitors, which keywords they are using, what kind of traffic are they getting, and to some extent, what kind of sales are they getting, what is their AdWords strategy, how much are they spending. All this can be found out through these tools. So you can have the guessing game out of this, is the whole thing. Then there's tools like heat mapping tools like Crazy Egg. If you have an existing site, you really want to know how your existing users have been behaving. So as you go on through this, this redesign or whatever you want to call it, this experience, you know that you're not going to miss something which has been very critical and important to your existing customers. And it's tools like Crazy Egg and Google Webmasters can definitely give you that insight on your existing site. Google PageSpeed, again, is a very powerful tool. As you can imagine, in this day and age, it's all about speed. The faster your site loads, the faster, the better the user experience, the more you get rewarded from Google. So these are the things you definitely have to keep in mind as you go through this, as you go through identifying your goals. And that really makes you understand, that takes you to the next step, which is your vision. I mean, goals is just a high-level strategy. Okay, now that you know where you need to do, a key is really to understand how am I going to get there, how much is going to cost, what tools will I be needing, and for that, I'll hand it over to Wes, who is my associate and handles a lot of these questions from clients on a day-to-day basis. So here you go, Wes.
Well, my name is Wes Rangel, and as Amit mentioned, I'm the Business Development Manager here at .com Weavers. First, I want to thank you all again for attending our webinar, but I have to apologize because it looks like you're stuck with me for the next couple of steps on this roadmap of ideas to implementation. If I go too fast, don't worry. I'll be around to answer any of your questions at the end of the ride. But anyway, we're at step two there, and to define or refine your vision, it sometimes means actually creating a diagram or a drawing of your ideal destination, basically the final product. Now, if you're crafty, so to speak, take advantage of some of the creative tools that are out there. Or perhaps if you work with a team that can provide creative input, then they can assist with that as well. But defining your vision is more than just creating a visual reference or roadmap. One way or another, you need to establish, as it says there, what is your big picture? What led you to the decision of creating a marketable e-commerce site? Work with that. List your business expectations from start to end. Now, personally, I field many inquiries, as Amit mentioned, and calls every week, and you'd be surprised about how many people, even companies, don't really have a basic requirements document. So when you think about it, really there's no need to get overly technical here. Let your developers do that part for you. What you really want to create is a high-level project overview that spells out your general needs and requirements. What are your goals? Well, you can see some ideas there on the slide, and while everyone's goals are different and unique, you certainly want to keep in mind certain things, like one, increasing the time that a user spends on your site. And this can be done by taking advantage of tried and tested methods that are out there for keeping users engaged. For example, utilizing vivid and engaging imagery, really focusing on visual storytelling. Those are things that make a big impact. Decreasing bounce rate, that's a big one, and for that, really, simplicity of message is the key. You want easy navigation and clear calls to action. Everyone talks about a seamless checkout, but really from start to finish, you want to have a user interface and user experience that is optimized for your desired functionality. And of course, increasing page speed, and Amit mentioned some tools that are out there, and there are methods that can certainly be used to decrease a user's page load time. And really, we could go on and on, but a good idea is to break up your project into phases. We see that there listed. Unless you have endless funds and time is not an issue, well, then you really want to set realistic, reasonable milestones. Determine what a viable phase one would be and aim for that. Know your yays and nays, meaning know what you absolutely must have in phase one and what you think might be able to be implemented in phase two or even phase three. Yes, you may have to be flexible with some functionality or certain features depending on your budget or goal launch date, but that is why you want to create a good blueprint. Every building, every idea starts with a vision, and if you ask anyone in construction, a blueprint is critical. Okay, well, we're not building a skyscraper here, of course, but like I said, it doesn't have to be overly technical. In the end, whether you build up certain aspects at different times or in different stages or phases, your vision will take shape but only if you've laid a solid foundation. The natural next step is to allocate your funds. As the parable goes, who of you that wants to build a tower does not first sit down and calculate the expense or count the cost? Now, sure, you know your project is going to be an investment, and if everything goes according to your well-laid-out plans, as discussed on the last slides, you should expect to see the desired ROI before long. But depending on the size of your project, an e-commerce site can certainly have a wide array of moving parts before launch and after launch. So it's really crucial to develop a budget purely for the design and development work. One of the scariest terms thrown around in our industry, I hear it all the time, is scope creep, which is wiki defined as uncontrolled changes or continuous growth in a project scope, occurring when a scope of a project is not properly defined, documented, or controlled. It's a scary word. And scope creep can break the bank, so to speak. And you hear these nightmare stories. I hear them all the time about how people have been left high and dry by developers right in the middle of a project because the terms were never clearly communicated or notated ahead of time. So create milestones. Clearly spell out how much you plan to invest along the way, and as things progress, use that as a guide to determine how far along you are and if everything is proceeding according to your plans. But you also want to look down the line and set a high-level marketing budget. Sure, this is something that may be a bit more flexible than others, but it's critical if you want to create that certain buzz not only before but after the site goes live as well. Also know that there will naturally be costs associated, as you see there, with licenses, servers, hosting, third-party integrations, etc. And you can really get some firm numbers in that regard ahead of time. So nothing in that regard should really be able to take you by surprise. But again, it's part of counting the cost and properly allocating your funds. When an e-commerce site has many moving parts, as I mentioned, like integrations that streamline customer service, order fulfillment, inventory management, and so on and so forth, you may need to reallocate your internal resources. So use your blueprint and work with your developers to see how a proper strategy can help you to get a grasp on in-house team expenses. You might be looking at some initial cost savings, or you may grow rapidly and need to expand your in-house team, but either way, these are good problems to have, and a good consultation from an experienced technical point of view will really go a long way. Well, organizing your resources is next, so I'll hand it back to our CEO and mastermind, who will talk about step 4.
Thanks, Wes. And now that you have a good handle of your goals, you know what your pain points were, and now that you have allocated necessary funds and resources, the next big question is, how am I going to get this done? How am I going to achieve the desired result and get to what my first step is launching this new beautiful site? And as you go through this process, really the key is to organize your resources, right? As part of resources, you have to think about it in those terms. They are both external and internal. Internal resources sometimes is you don't know what to expect. So it's really important that if you have an in-house IT team, well and good. If you don't, that you partner with a web developer or a company who really sets the right expectations and tells you the actual roadblocks and the issues you're going to have in this journey. Not everything could be just rosy, right? There are a lot of things you have to think about. In terms of the layout, from the products to the pricing to the content, there are way too many things to this whole site. As you plan to this, obviously partnering with the right company with the right experience is a big deal. As you go through this, the next step is really, as you're going through this process, you want to use technology to make your life easier. There are so many project management tools out there which can make this process seamless. Some of the popular ones which we use here is Basecamp, Dropbox, and of course Google Drive, which helps us organize all our files and communication in one central place. And as you go through this, now the next question comes around is you have to assign a project manager. And the project manager is not only from the vendor side. As a company, as an individual, you might need to act or either assign somebody as a project manager or act as one yourself. Because if you don't have project manager on both sides, there's always chaos. And you have to have one central person who knows everything about the project at any given point of time. And as you go through this, the next step is creating a reporting hierarchy. In simple terms, you have to have your expectations set right. What are my timelines? What is the expectation? What is the functional requirement? When can I expect a deliverable? And, what is expected out of you? These are things are very important as you go through this, And as we talk about mandatory compliances, what is a must-have? That's something should be clearly laid out in your requirements, which is a must-have as part of this project. It might be that you're really focusing big on design. So your must-have is your design really has to reflect your brand, or you're really focusing on the whole checkout or the content. That's something you really have to keep in mind, and also have to set the right expectation with the company so that there are no surprises in the end. And as you go through this process, obviously the biggest thing is laying down timelines. When we have timelines, we all act in a much more structured manner because we all need timelines. Timelines helps us be in track, both the parties be on track, and that's something which is very critical to any project. Based on experience, we understand that a lot of times timelines are not met, but if you don't have timelines, the project is never completed. And that's a very critical piece of this entire, journey is making sure your timelines are pretty much, well-defined from both ends so that you can move forward in the most appropriate manner. As we talk about timelines and the whole assigning resources, the biggest thing here now, the next step is really coming down to what is coming down to really what is step 5. Step 5 is really defining your design strategy and dev strategy. What do we really mean by design strategy? Again, strategy is a big word and we all use it. Brand identity. Yes, the first and foremost important thing is really having a clear vision on what your design is going to be. Are you an established brand? Are you starting from scratch? Are you working with a branding company or a creative agency, or you're looking for the vendor to do that? It really depends upon defining that identity. As you go through that, you have to have wireframes. Wireframes are nothing but bare-bone blueprints of how your design is going to look like. And these days there are so many wireframing tools which make this process seamless. Tools such as Sketch or Axer, they really do a very good job in terms of wireframing and UI UX. That's something. Design is the time where you want to spend a lot of time. This is something which should not be rushed. Obviously mindful of the timeline, but on the other hand, you have to make sure you lay out all the details on how you want your banner images to work, how you want your category and product listing pages to work, how you want your static pages to work. These are all things, your checkout. All said and done is design, which is going to set the stage for your development. So the more time you spend in design, the more clear your guidelines are, the better is going to be your dev. And responsive design, we put in there as a bullet point, but in our mind, this is something which is everyone needs to do it by default. Google came out with this algorithm early this year, where every site should be responsive, otherwise they would be penalized. And believe me or not, we still see so many of our clients or even potential clients who really don't have a responsive site, and they are just trying to get onto it now. This is something which cannot be ignored. Again, it all depends upon your business requirements. A responsive site is definitely a good step. But maybe you might need a mobile site separately because, your customers are very mobile specific. They know what they want in terms of a SKU number. They just want to add the item to cart and check out. So it really depends upon how you go about it. But obviously, mobile and desktop and tablets, of course, they all have to be part of your design mix. And, and your wireframe should be clearly laying out the details and the different layouts for the different platforms. As we talk about design, now I would transfer over to Priya, who's a project manager with us and deals with a lot of the development questions which our clients have. And Priya, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Amit. Hi, I'm Priya Navani, and I'm the project manager at .com Weavers. Firstly, I want to thank all of you for attending our webinar. So let's come back to the slide development strategy. Selecting the right shopping cart that fulfills your business needs is imperative. That, of course, depends on your business requirement. There are open source carts that do not need a very high learning curve like WooCommerce, OpenCart, and Shopify. if you're dealing with bulk inventory, a huge list of customers, and you're looking for an automated functionality, then Magento is the most recommended one. Alongside, you want to select a secure online payment gateway. There are lots of standard payment gateways like Authorize.net, PayPal, but if you're looking for something unique, then you might want to look into Braintree, Stripe, Venmo. Now, a lot of these shopping carts, they provide inventory management and order fulfillment, but if you are looking for something automated, an automated ERP, then you might want to look into StoneEdge, Solid e-commerce. The biggest roadblocks for clients is inventory management. There are so many different distribution channels nowadays, and how do you manage your inventory on these different distribution channels? These softwares can actually automate your process. There are some great third-party modules that would streamline this entire process of inventory management. So these days, Marketplace is an integral part of your omni-channel strategy. But with that being said, managing Marketplace, it's lots of work. Managing prices, inventory, customer database. How are you going to do all this? And that is why there are these third-party tools. You want to look into the product information management system, or you want to look into InRiver, Akimio. Another thing to consider is your business ready for all these changes? Managing your business is very important, and we understand that. But managing your customers is the key. Depending on your business needs, you might want to integrate return merchandise authorization, ticket system, keep customers engaged through social media, email campaigns, promotional campaigns. You want to create the trust that these customers want to come back to you. They want to come back to your site. Being said that, and let's move to the next slide, that is about the best practices before you go live. So now you have a great site, and you have, and you want to use the best practice SEO on your site. It's extremely important to be educated about this. We have clients complaining that, I have this site, but I really don't know whether my site has the 301 redirect, or do they have the 404 pages. There is a list that has been put together. You might want to go through this and look into it before you launch a site. There are some great free tools by Google, like Analytics, Webmaster Tool, checking your page speed. All these are available for free. If you want detailed analysis on your SEO, you might want to subscribe to Moz SEO, Crazy Egg, Clicky, something that Amit has already covered earlier. So it's really important to be educated about search engine optimization if you want your site to do well. And with that said, I pass it to our CEO.
Thanks, Priya. And just on that note, I just wanted to add another aspect from Priya, where she spends a lot of her time is really data management, product data, which lately has, which to every, to every person is very important. As you're laying down this site, which has these tons of different data, different attributes, different SKUs, different pricing, how do you really have a good handle of your data? And that's something you really have to start thinking from not day one, but perhaps day 15, because that plays a huge role. Are you going to upload your data through spreadsheets? Are you going to use the back end to manage products? It really depends upon that. And obviously, when you're dealing with a lot of products, handling spreadsheets and different values and different configurations, that all becomes a challenge. Having said that, the next point we should really talk about more is, okay, now that you have your design and dev strategy in place, what do we really do? How do we really evaluate? How do we really know what I'm trying to build is good enough for my customers? And that is just where you get to, as you're getting closer to launch, that's where you have to start thinking about all these aspects. As we say here in this slide, launch is just the beginning. This is just step one. But at least it's the first step in the right direction. There are a lot of things which you have to think about as you're planning to launch. Is the site set up? Yes, the company you're working with and the design you have come up with is good, but you should always verify your design through some third-party tools as well, and make sure that all these tools, everything else is in place to give you the push which you would initially need. I mean, Google Analytics is something which is very standard, which you should have on every site upon launch, and not just analytics. You should have conversion tracking on, so that you know from day one where your customers are coming from, where are they buying it, and what's your sales channel, what's your e-commerce funnel. That's very important to know. Google page speed. I mean, just this page speed and load time. And when we say Google page speed, I'm just talking about a very specific tool. But that's just not the only tool which you'd use to analyze your page speed for the site. I mean, on another note, I mean, if you are a site which is very heavy on images and a lot of products, you should be thinking about CDN. You should be thinking about, DNS proxies such as Cloudflare. You should be thinking about, page caching and load time, so that you want to make sure that users from around the world get the most optimal experience when it comes to page speed and loading of your product details page. As you go through this, obviously, you can even utilize third parties like usertesting.com, so that you can test your dev site before you launch, and where you would get honest feedback from people who have never seen your site before. Yes, you should have cart abandonment tools in place, so that you can send them reminders if someone adds an item to your cart and they never go through the checkout process. Send them email reminders, first day, third day, fifth day, and perhaps maybe a coupon towards the end, so that they can complete the purchase. As Priya mentioned, social media is obviously has become a very big part in this whole process. But sometimes it becomes too overwhelming for some new businesses on how they are going to handle social media. In that case, you can even look at tools like Hootsuite, where we can, really automate a lot of your social media posts through one channel. And again, these are just different tools and ways to get started. As you get started, and again, you have to make sure that this is something which is not rushed, because that's where rushing usually leads to a bad product, and that's why you have to take your time to make sure these things are in place as you move ahead. And then going over to the next slide. Obviously, now that we have done the idea, we have done the planning, and we have done the strategy, which is the realization. Now the whole point is, if you have all your ducks in a row in the right manner, I mean, there's no way. I mean, why would you not succeed? I mean, that leads to the road to success. And I would like to just end this webinar just on a couple of few big notes. Is the key really is not only just to have the budget or to spend, but the key is really to have a good vision and to know what exactly you want out of this whole exercise, to know which platform you're going to use as you go through that, how you want your design to be. And you should be willing to spend the time. I'm just purely speaking in terms of time and resource allocation, because I know everyone has a side budget in mind, which is already set aside. It is the key to success. Obviously, as you go through this process, there are a lot of tools which you should think about to make your the entire journey as pleasant as possible. And these tools, most of them don't cost a lot of money. I mean, in some cases, most of them are free, and for some of the other ones, you're looking at a few dollars a month, not much. And you should think about utilizing these tools and how you can make your life easy and this project a success through the utilization of these tools. Some of the key takeaways, I believe, as you see in the slide, is obviously you have to know your competition. You have to know what you're looking for. You have to know what your phase one should be, as Wes mentioned, because, if you don't have a well-defined scope or a phase, this could become a project which could go on forever and ever. And as you go through this process, you have to have the right team, the right people on both ends, whether it be in-house or external, and the right tools as you go through this. And you have to have a good handle on the technology out there. Technology is changing super fast. I mean, 2 years ago, there was no responsive as such much, but now it's all about responsive. There are different ways to achieve responsive, whether you go through Bootstrap, whether you use Magento, whether you use the OpenCart, whether you use Shopify. It all really depends upon your business requirements. So the key is really to be a little bit more educated on what's out there in the market and how you can utilize it to the best of your advantage. Having said that, I think, it's as simple as think big, dream big and you can really achieve what you want to achieve, as long as you have your goal in mind and you know how to go get there. Now I'll transfer it over to Ethan. Ethan, now if we want to have some questions, we can start from that point.
Yes, thank you. All right, and we do have some questions coming in. Our first question is, which shopping cart is best for me?
This is an atypical question which comes out from almost every client of ours. Shopping carts, it all really depends upon what are your business requirements. Lately Magento has been making a lot of buzz, but on the other hand, although Magento is a very powerful and strong shopping cart, and there are a lot of modules for Magento which can make your life easy, but it comes with a steep learning curve and it's very server resource hungry. So it really depends upon, and then there are other carts like OpenCart or XCart or even BigCommerce or Shopify, which really, simplifies the entire process. So it really depends upon your business requirements to really suggest which cart is best for you.
Thank you. And our next question is, how can one manage these robust platforms on their own?
A lot of these platforms, they come with a very powerful CMS, a content management system. And pretty much you can manage most of the elements on your own without having to talk to a developer. The only time you really need a developer to look into is when there are any security issues or enhancements in terms of functionality. And as part of this process, you need to make sure that there's enough time being allocated so that you can get proper training on the back end on how things work and how to add products, how to add static pages, how to update customer information. A lot of this really goes into the training. You also have YouTube is a good resource where you can get a bunch of videos on the back end on how let's say a Magento admin works, and you'll get a fairly good idea of how to have a good handle on all this.
And next question is, what should a requirements document have? How should I gather this data?
A requirements document doesn't have to be very technical. All you can start with is with something very basic using a Word doc or a spreadsheet and just trying to list out what exactly you're looking for. What kind of functionality you really need to have. Sometimes, it could be as simple as, putting in some sample URLs, whether it be competitors or a company in a different industry to see, this is the kind of feature I want. This is more in terms of front end. In terms of back end, you know your business, you know your products. You need to know what kind of features will I need in the back end. Do I need to automate my return authorization? Do I need automated shipping and tracking? These are all things which needs to be discussed in the requirements. And again, it could be as simple as just putting things in a simple language. And then, we being experts, we would be able to refine it and define it further for you as we move along, because this is something which we see on a regular basis.
Thank you. And our next question is, what are the KPIs for my e-commerce site and what tools do I use to measure them?
So KPIs, key performance indicators, is a big word. But on the other hand, every e-commerce site should have some leading KPIs. It could be as simple as Google Analytics, but Google Analytics is something which almost everybody has these days. If you want to drill down it further, you should really look at some very low-cost third-party tools such as Crazy Egg, which is a heat mapping tool which allows you to really get a good understanding of how your users behave. Where do they really navigate on the site? And that's something you should think about. But in terms of, you can even have Google Webmasters, which gives you a good health of the SEO, of the technical health of your site. And same thing goes with Google PageSpeed. So just to keep that in perspective, your KPIs could be could be very complicated, in which case you can even use some paid third-party tools such as Kissmetrics or Domo, or it could be as simple as just using Google Analytics or Crazy Egg just to get your user data.
All right, and our next question is, how do I choose a web developer?
That's a pretty important question, and that's something you really have to, You have to, in this space, as companies like us, I mean, the weird thing is, being in the online space, it's not, anyone could create a beautiful looking website and call themselves a web developer, but the key is really to find out the depth of the company, what kind of clients they have, what kind of work they have done, obviously you have to know, and if they're in your, one thing is if they are in your price range or not. And that's one aspect. But key really is to really dig deep and ask the right questions to the developer to see if they're really in it for this project or they are really in it for the long term. You don't really want to work with a company which is just looking at you as a dollar amount and wants to move on from one project to another. You really want to really talk to a company who understands your vision and your goal, has the technical experience to implement that, and is willing to be and partner with you for the next 15 phases to come. And obviously, looking at their sample work and references is something which is very critical, but that comes, work is easy. You can just look at their portfolio or ask them for URLs, and references is something you should definitely talk to as you get, more deeply involved into the conversation.
All right, and our next question is, how do I categorize my products?
Categorizing your products. I mean, this is really drills down to, there are two questions to it. Either A, do you have an existing site, or you are starting from scratch? If you have an existing site, you have to look at past user behavior and user data. You don't want to make massive categorization changes right away and then Google penalize you for moving your products from one category to another and not having proper 301 and 404 pages in place. Categorize, but keep in mind, in this day and age, as you look at the modern e-commerce sites, it's all about being simplistic. The simpler your categories are, the less the number of clicks, the faster a user gets to a product, the higher is going to be a conversion, and that's all you really want. So part of categorization could, and if you're starting from scratch, another good way to look at it is find some of the best performing sites in your industry. See what they are doing good, see how their products are categorized, and what pointers can you take from them. And as you go through this, you will realize, categorization could be very detailed, but on the other hand, it could be very simple as well. A key as part of categorization, as you put in your products, would be how are you going to make your users search. Search filters play a very important role, and that all really depends upon your product data. The better your product data, the faster they would be able to search, which again, is what you really want them to achieve. And that also boils down to categorization. Next question.
All right, and our next question is, what should my omni-channel strategy be?
That's another big word, is omni-channel, right? Obviously, as you survive in this competitive e-commerce landscape, you cannot just rely on your own website to make all the sale, and you have to start making your footprint across all the different channels. And as you go through this, you cannot ignore Amazon, which at this point, data suggests gets more product searches than Google itself. I think about 55 to 60% of all product searches happen on Amazon. So Amazon has to play a big role of your omni-channel strategy. Then there's Overstock, there's Sears, there's Rakuten, there's Etsy. It really depends where you need to go. There's eBay. As you plan it out, keep in mind, don't stretch yourself too thin. Omni-channel is good. Everybody wants to sell in as many different places as possible, obviously. But on the other hand, you need to learn to manage. One bad experience, one negative feedback will really hurt you big time. As you know, Amazon even ranks your products based on the number of people who are, based on your feedback, based on your shipping. And these are things that are very important. Not only from a front-end perspective, now think about from a management perspective. You have a back end, now you have these different channels, you are processing orders. You need to have the proper tools, mechanisms, processes in place to process these orders, because now you have a website and you have all these different sales channels, and you might have your own retail store, so you need to manage all of these. And keep in mind, omnichannel is good. Everyone should think about it, but you should you should have a controlled approach toward this. Perhaps maybe you can start with a few products at a time, one channel at a time, and then keep on increasing your footprint.
All right, and my The next question is, what should be my mobile strategy?
Mobile, anyway, as we know, mobile is the way forward, as it has been the case over the last 2 years or so. And with Google's responsive algorithm update, everyone needs to have a mobile strategy. Now, it all really depends upon your products, your target market. If it could be divided into two, right? Do I need to have a responsive site? Do I need to have a mobile-only site? Or do I need to have an adaptive site? It really depends upon what your business requirements are. I mean, if I'm selling tens and thousands of products, where my products are very manufacturer-specific and users buy mostly through SKU numbers, then I believe a mobile site does wonders, because you can just create a simple mobile site like Granger and have users go through, add in a SKU number, add the product to cart, and just check out. But if you want users to get a little bit more information than just a SKU, I mean, a responsive site could do the same job. I mean, that way they get a little bit more information about the product, about the company. Your responsive site on mobile doesn't have to have all the same elements as a desktop site. So perhaps you should think about reducing the clutter. Very simple banners, very simple call to actions, laying out the products properly with perhaps big pictures, and the pricing should be clearly there mentioned. And obviously test the checkout on mobile. And if you on an adaptive site, your cost of maintaining, I mean, it also depends on your cost. I mean, mobile and adaptive, they require separate resources to be maintained, versus responsive, where it's just one site, one code base, and it works across all the different platforms. So as you keep this in mind, there are various approaches to this. So it really depends upon your products, your target users, and what your existing customers want.
All right, and I don't have any further questions. Do you have any web questions?
I see some questions which are being posted up there, and I'll start with some of the ones. When picking an e-commerce site, what is the most important option I should look for? As I mentioned earlier, there are so many e-commerce sites in the market right now. The best way for you to look at is, A, what are my needs? How many products am I selling? Do my products have a lot of attributes? Do I need a lot of bells and whistles? And how many resources do I have to really manage that? Magento, everyone talks about it. It's a very popular shopping cart, but again, as I mentioned, it's very server heavy. It's very, and there has a steep learning curve. But on the other hand, it gives you a lot of bells and whistles. OpenCart, is easy to use, easy to learn, but has limited functionality to begin with. So based on that, and on another note, you can even think about some startup platforms like Shopify or BigCommerce and be on their SaaS-based platforms. I mean, you can think about, if you just are starting out and you just need something minimum, Shopify is a great platform to go for. The next question is, are there any key questions you would recommend asking potential developers? I believe we already spoke about that. And I see there's one question which has come up a couple of times is, what are the best review sites to incorporate into my e-commerce? There's Trustpilot, Ecomi, Bazaarvoice. We have, as you can see in this question, some of the best review sites. In my mind, all of these review sites, they do the same basic function. It all really depends upon the pricing, and you should look at what kind of features, the extra added features which you're looking for. Lately, we have found our clients leaning a lot towards Trustpilot and reseller ratings. So these are the two ones which we have been using recently, and we have found some pretty positive feedback on it. We have worked with Bazaarvoice as well, but to give you my unbiased opinion, I think we have had more success with Trustpilot and reseller ratings and how they operate and how they integrate well with your site. At this point, I don't really see any more questions. Ethan, anything else do you have?
No, we have no further questions at this time.
All right, then. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time and attending this webinar. And we hope to connect with you again. And feel free to shoot us an email, visit our website, and get in touch with us for any questions, anything we can help you out with. believe me, we're not going to charge you for asking questions. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. If you enjoyed today's program and would like more information from .com Weavers, please call 201-880-6656